after reading this shocking poll in The Australian this morning. The inaugural McKinnon Index found that of 4,000 people surveyed, fewer than 55% were satisfied with how democracy works. So just a tick over half of people think that democracy is working properly. And I kind of understand that one. But look at some of the other numbers. Across the country, less than 50% considered that elections were free and fair. That is a startling number. 17% said the main reason they voted at all was simply to avoid fines. Fewer than 36% actually trusted federal politicians as a whole. Honestly, that's probably higher than I thought it would be. Interestingly, trust in political parties was highest among men aged 18 to 24. But these two stats were the most jarring for me. 9%, nearly 1 in 10, believe that violence can be justified for political causes, and 24%, basically a quarter of people, believe democracy is not the best form of government. So if they don't think democracy's the way to go, Jamie, where else are we going?
I know, that's a frightening thought, isn't it? But you could also put a positive spin on that and think that 3/4 of Australians think that democracy is the right way to go.
Which is a majority.
But I think, yes, exactly. So at least we've got 76% of people that think that a democracy is the way to go.
But it's a big
to your
run.
point, it's a very scary thought, though, that 24% of people, what do they want? Go down the authoritarian path? I don't know. But I think what this survey really says, though, is that our leaders aren't delivering and that people are losing trust and faith in their leaders. And I just think that's what is a sign of an effective government. And we need to ensure that they can rebuild this to get a stronger Australia. That people are crying out, like what we saw in New York over recently with the rise of the Mamdani, who's the socialist, declared socialist himself. But people are saying that he's authentic, he listens to what voters are wanting. So I think across the Western world, democracies are under threat, and it is the rise of this social cohesion is sort of going out the window. And I think this should be a real wake-up call that we need to start doing things differently and listening to the voters.
Not to throw a spanner in the works, but I think I'm in that 24%.
OK, so in that case, what would you prefer as a system of government?
I would much prefer... Well, let's just rewind a bit. I think the reason why democracy has thrived in Western nations is because it was Christian democracies. Because we weren't having... Demos just means people, right? So the people who were voting weren't necessarily voting on morality and what is moral and good, but they were voting on where are we going to put infrastructure? Where are we going to put this car park? Is this going to affect the view? Economics and things. But what I don't like about democracy today is that basically it's mob rule. And I don't like particularly 51% of most people's morals these days. And that's why I think democracy today is failing, because what it stood on before was what was moral and what was good and what our legal systems were formed. And now that's changing. Now we're voting on whether we can have late-term abortions and kill babies at nearly 9 months in the womb. Now we're voting on whether we should legalise same-sex marriage, which obviously goes against certain religions' conscience. And so we've delved from what once was democracy into now saying whatever the 51% deem is moral. And I don't like that. And so that's why I think in the West, democracy is failing, because I'm sorry, but 51% of people voting on something doesn't make it moral and good. Because if that was the case, then we shouldn't be pointing the finger at Saudi Arabia and them, deciding to stone women who are raped or throw gays off buildings, because 51% in Saudi Arabia would say that's moral and good. That's how democracy works without pride.
But we're allowed to pass our own assumptions.
No, but that's the logic of it, though. That's what democracy is.
We live in a liberal democracy, which means that those things, 51% does not get to ride ramshackle over the rights of the losing side, if you like. So that's the whole point.
Well, it kind of did.
That's the whole point of a liberal democracy, that people have civil rights that cannot be violated.
But they do every day.
Unless by law. Well, you might think that yours are in particular, but,
Well, yours were during COVID. You've written about it, Joe.
Yeah. No, I absolutely understand that. And democracies, as Winston Churchill said, are the worst form of government in the world apart from all the others. But the idea that democracy, when it was first formed, was something much more beautiful and pure is just fantastical. That's just not true at all. It was formed in Athens.
It's not perfect at all. None of it's perfect. But
democracy
it was better than today.
No, So, well, you wouldn't have had the vote when democracy was first formed.
I'm okay with that.
See, again, I'm not sure that you are the best advocate for democracy then. Slaves did not. Slaves did not have.
I couldn't care less. If my husband or my father's voting for our family, like, I'm not going to vote against what he would vote or my father would vote.
Very well in ancient Athens and ancient Rome.
There are lots of people. Like I'm not saying let's abolish that, but I'm saying
everything evolves over time. The population of women, and 51 were not voting.
Everything evolves over time. I guess the point, Kel, is whether or not democracy is the best option. And of course, the saying is always, I think, was attributed to Winston Churchill, but that may be apocryphal. That democracy is the worst system of government except for all the others.
Yes,
all the others.
Yes.
Is there a better system of government than democracy?
No, there isn't. And in fact, I had a look at this survey, and I think in a lot of ways it tells us Australian democracy is functioning pretty well. 9% of Australians believe violence can be justified for political causes. In America, the figure is 24%. I'd worry about their democracy, not ours. I think 17% go to vote so they won't get a fine. It's only 17%. I think Aussies are perfectly comfortable lining up for their democracy sausage and marking off their ballot.